was a quiet night in the old city. The streets were empty, and a thick fog covered the area. Most people were asleep, but in the heart of the city stood an old hotel. This hotel had been around for decades, its walls holding secrets that no one dared to talk about. For years, rumors of strange noises and unexplained shadows had surrounded it. People said the hotel was haunted, but the owners always denied it. On this particular night, a young traveler named Alex arrived. He was tired after a long journey and only wanted a place to rest. The hotel looked normal from the outside. Its tall windows reflected the dim streetlights, and the wooden doors creaked slightly as he pushed them open. The lobby smelled old, like dust and something faintly sweet, a smell that was hard to ignore. The receptionist, an old man with pale skin and deep-set eyes, gave Alex a key. "Room 312, he said in a quiet, almost trembling voice. "Try not to make too much noise." Alex smiled politely, thinking the man was just strange. He had stayed in many old hotels before and was not worried. As Alex walked to his room, the hallway seemed longer than it should have been. The lights flickered occasionally, and the walls were covered in faded paintings of people he could not recognize. When he reached room 312, he noticed the door was slightly open, even though the key he had fit perfectly. He pushed it and entered. The room was small but cozy, with a single bed and an old wardrobe. He sighed, relieved to finally rest. Hours passed. Alex was half asleep when he heard a strange sound, like whispering coming from the hallway. He sat up and listened carefully. The whispers grew louder, but when he opened the door and looked out, the hallway was empty. The paintings on the walls seemed to stare at him, their eyes almost moving. He shook his head and thought, "I must be tired. It's just my imagination." But the hotel had other plans. Suddenly, the lights went out completely. Alex felt a cold breeze, even though the window was closed. Shadows moved along the walls. He tried to call the receptionist, but the phone didn't work. Then he heard it, a loud banging coming from the room next door. It sounded like someone, or something, was trying to break the door down. Alex's heart raced. He grabbed the small flashlight from his bag and carefully opened his door. The hallway was pitch black. The banging continued, faster and harder. He noticed that the shadows seemed to move on their own, stretching and twisting. A feeling of dread filled him. He wanted to run, but something held him back. Then, out of nowhere, a figure appeared at the end of the hall. It was tall and dark, with glowing red eyes. Alex froze. The figure didn't speak, but the air around it felt heavy, like a storm about to strike. He realized he was not alone in the hotel. Whatever this was, it was waiting for him. Alex ran back to his room, slammed the door, and locked it. The banging stopped, replaced by whispers that seemed to come from inside the room itself. His flashlight flickered, revealing shadows dancing across the walls. He could feel them getting closer, circling him, testing him. Then, he remembered the old man's warning, "Try not to make too much noise." It wasn't just a strange request, it was a warning. Alex realized the hotel itself was alive in some way. Every creak of the floor, every shadow, every whisper was part of it. The hotel was waging a war against him, testing his fear, seeing how much he could endure. Hours felt like days. Alex stayed awake, watching, listening, terrified. Every small noise seemed magnified. Finally, just before dawn, the hotel grew quiet. The shadows receded, the whispers faded, and the air became still. Alex was shaken, exhausted, but alive. He knew he had survived the first night, but the hotel had left a mark on him. As he packed his things to leave, he noticed something strange. On the floor by the wardrobe, there were small scratches, like claw marks, forming a pattern. He didn't recognize the pattern, but he felt it meant something, something ominous. He left the hotel quickly, vowing never to return. But deep down, he knew this was only the beginning. The hotel had more stories, more battles waiting for its next guest. After surviving his first night, Alex thought he had left the horrors of the old hotel behind. But a few months later, curiosity, and a strange letter, drew him back. The letter was typed on an old, yellowed paper with no signature, only these words. Room 217 awaits. Don't ignore it. At first, Alex wanted to ignore it. But something inside him pulled him forward. He found himself back at the same city, standing once again in front of the old hotel. The fog had returned, thicker than before, curling around the building like fingers. The doors creaked open as if inviting him inside. This time, the lobby seemed quieter. The receptionist was gone, replaced by a small, flickering lamp on the counter. Alex approached cautiously. The letter had said room 217. He took the stairs slowly, noticing the walls again, covered in paintings whose eyes seemed alive, watching his every move. When he reached room 217, his hand trembled as he turned the doorknob. The door opened easily, revealing a room that looked normal at first. A bed, a small desk, and a wardrobe, everything seemed ordinary. But then he noticed something strange. The room had no windows. Not a single one. The walls were painted in dark red, and the air felt thick, almost suffocating. Alex stepped inside and immediately felt watched. He turned slowly, but the room appeared empty. Then he noticed a small mirror on the wall. At first, his reflection looked normal. But as he blinked, the reflection smiled at him, even though he wasn't smiling. He stepped back in shock. The reflection moved slightly ahead of him, like it had a mind of its own. The air grew colder, and whispers began, soft and menacing, just at the edge of his hearing. He could not understand the words, but they made his skin crawl. Suddenly, the wardrobe door creaked open by itself. Shadows spilled out, stretching across the room, twisting like living creatures. They wrapped around the furniture, crawling toward Alex. He ran to the door, but it slammed shut violently in front of him. The room was alive, feeding on his fear, trapping him inside. Alex tried to remember the first night. He tried to stay calm. He noticed a small drawer in the desk, slightly open. Inside, he found a faded photograph of a family he did not recognize. Behind it was a small key, cold and heavy in his hand. Something told him the key was important. He inserted it into the wardrobe lock. As soon as it clicked, the shadows recoiled, hissing like angry snakes. The wardrobe doors swung open fully, revealing a hidden passageway behind it. Alex hesitated, fear rooting him to the floor, but curiosity forced him forward. He stepped inside. The passage was narrow, dark, and smelled of damp wood. Whispers grew louder, voices overlapping, almost screaming. He moved quickly, his flashlight barely cutting through the darkness. Suddenly, the passage opened into a large room, a ballroom. But this was no ordinary ballroom. Chandeliers hung crooked, their crystals reflecting dim light, and the floor was covered in dust. In the center of the room, dozens of chairs were arranged in a circle, all facing the middle, where a shadowy figure sat. The figure looked like a man but had no face, only darkness. As Alex entered, the figure raised its head, and the whispers stopped. The silence was deafening. Alex could feel eyes on him from every direction. The room seemed to stretch endlessly, with walls that he could not see clearly. The figure spoke in a low, chilling voice, "You shouldn't be here. This room does not exist for the living." Alex's heart pounded. He took a step back, but the door behind him had disappeared. He realized then that he had crossed into a part of the hotel no one had ever seen. The hotel itself was a labyrinth, filled with rooms that shouldn't exist, each holding its own terrors. The shadow figure rose, gliding toward him without moving its legs. Alex felt an icy grip on his chest, making it hard to breathe. But just when he thought he would collapse, he remembered the first night. He focused on surviving. He shouted at the figure, hoping his courage would force it to retreat. To his surprise, the figure stopped. It tilted its head as if considering him, then stepped back into the shadows. The doors reappeared, and Alex ran without looking back, the whispers echoing in his ears. He didn't stop until he reached the lobby, gasping for air, sweating, and shaking. Alex realized that the hotel was not just haunted, it was intelligent. It watched, it tested, and it trapped anyone who dared to stay too long. Room 217 had been a warning, a glimpse into the true power of the building. But he also realized something more terrifying: the hotel remembered him now. And it would not forget easily. As he left, the fog swallowed the hotel again, hiding it from view. Alex knew that whatever horrors awaited him, the hotel had many secrets yet to reveal. And deep down, he feared the next letter. Because he knew, the hotel was already planning its next war. Alex had tried to forget the old hotel, but the memory of room 217 haunted him every night. The shadows, the whispers, the faceless figure, they never left his mind. He told himself he would never go back. But then the letter arrived. Tonight, you finish what you started. Room 412. Alex felt a cold shiver run down his spine. He knew the hotel was calling him, and ignoring it was no longer an option. Something inside him, a mix of fear and curiosity, forced him to return. By midnight, he was standing once again in front of the old building. The fog had grown thicker, swirling around the hotel like a living thing. The lobby was darker than ever. The flickering lamp was gone, replaced by total silence. No footsteps echoed, no wind whispered, just a heavy, suffocating air that made Alex's chest tight. He climbed the stairs slowly, each step creaking like a scream. Room 412 awaited him. When he reached the door, he noticed it was entirely black, no keyhole, no handle. The letter had not lied. He reached out and touched the door. It swung open instantly, revealing a room that looked familiar, yet twisted. The walls were lined with mirrors, but instead of reflecting him, they showed scenes from his past, moments of fear, regret, and loneliness. Alex stepped in cautiously. The door slammed shut behind him. The mirrors seemed to close in, and the air grew colder. He realized that this room was alive, feeding on every memory and every fear he had ever carried. Whispers rose from the mirrors, voices calling his name, mocking him, tempting him to give in. Then, from the center of the room, a shadow emerged. It was larger than anything he had seen before, its form constantly shifting. One moment, it looked human, the next, it had hundreds of eyes and mouths. Screaming silently. The shadow spoke in a voice that was both many and one. You have returned. Now you belong to the hotel. Alex's heart raced. He remembered the key from room 217. He pulled it from his pocket and held it tightly, as if it could protect him. The shadow laughed, a sound that shook the mirrors and made the floor tremble. Alex realized that fear was its weapon. The more afraid he became, the stronger it grew. He took a deep breath. He focused on something else, hope. Memories of his family, friends, and the life he wanted to live filled his mind. He refused to let the shadow control him. The mirrors started cracking, one by one, as the light of his courage pushed back the darkness. The shadow screamed, a terrible, bone-chilling sound, and lunged at him. Alex ran toward the far end of the room, using the cracks in the mirrors as a path. He reached a small door hidden behind a broken mirror. He inserted the key into the lock, and for the first time, it fit perfectly. The door opened, revealing the hotel's rooftop. The night sky was stormy, with lightning illuminating the twisted silhouette of the building. Alex ran to the edge, knowing he had no other choice. Behind him, the shadow emerged from the broken mirrors, reaching for him with countless arms. He jumped. The wind carried him away from the building, and he landed hard on the street below. The fog rolled over him, hiding him from the hotel. When he looked back, the building appeared normal, quiet, and empty, like nothing had happened. Alex did not wait. He ran until he reached the city limits. He never looked back again. The hotel remained in the fog, waiting, patient, its walls filled with endless stories of fear. He knew the shadows still lingered inside, but he had survived. Even now, years later, Alex could not forget the terror. He warned everyone who asked about the old hotel. Some laughed, some didn't believe him, but Alex knew the truth. The hotel was alive, and it would always be hungry for the next guest. The night had ended, but the war had not. Somewhere in the city, in the depths of the fog, the old hotel waited, ready to trap anyone who dared to step inside. And those who did, rarely left. Alex had survived the final night, but the memory of the shadows, the whispers, and the living walls would stay with him forever. He had faced the hotel, and lived to tell the tale. But deep down, he feared one day it would call again, and next time, he might not escape.